Cars are something people are passionate about in all kinds of ways, and if you're watching this video, chances are you either drive one or you've got a soft spot for them somehow. One way or another, cars have been woven into our lives for over a century, and ever since the first ones rolled off the assembly lines, folks have been trying to make them bigger, faster, cooler, and sleeker, you name it. But just like with any creative pursuit, not every idea hits the mark. Some designs leave you scratching your head, thinking, wait, what were they even going for? So, with that in mind, let's dive into the 15 strangest cars ever made, and trust us, they're totally strange. Number 15. Aston Martin Bulldog. When you think of Aston Martin, you picture class, elegance, and a dash of James Bond. But in 1979, they decided to shake things up and go full beast mode with the Aston Martin Bulldog, a low-slung speed demon made to break the 200 miles per hour barrier. With just one prototype ever built, Aston poured serious effort into engineering the Bulldog to be a record breaker. It hit 307 kilometers per hour in testing, just shy of its goal. But sadly, the project was scrapped almost immediately after that single run. Too expensive, too risky, and the engine didn't survive the heat. For over 4 decades, the Bulldog sat in silence, until enthusiasts rebuilt it, piece by piece, and gave it one last chance to prove itself. On its second go-around, it finally achieved what Aston set out to do. It wasn't luxury, it wasn't mass market, but it was fast, and weird, and unforgettable. For a company known for refinement, the Bulldog was pure mechanical rebellion. Number 14, 1932, Helocron. One look at the Helocron, and you instantly realize how far people were willing to go to break convention. Built in 1932 in France, this experimental car ditched the engine layout entirely and went with a front-mounted propeller for propulsion. It wasn't a gimmick, the propeller actually moved the vehicle. Its entire drivetrain was flipped in reverse, with the rear wheels used for steering. That alone made the ride feel unlike anything else on the road. But with the spinning prop exposed, it wasn't exactly pedestrian-friendly. Plus, the massive blade up front made visibility difficult, especially in tight spaces. Noise levels were no joke either. Yet, despite all that, someone resurrected this forgotten relic decades later and rebuilt it to working condition, fully road legal in the United States, no less. The Helocron didn't survive the 1930s for practical reasons, but as a piece of mechanical audacity, it holds a special place in automotive oddity. It was less a car, more a dare to conventional logic. But let's be real, this thing looks super cool. Number 3, 1970, Lancia Stratos HF0. This is just out of this earth. The 1970 Lancia Stratos HF0 was born straight out of a rivalry between Italian design giants Bertone and Pininfarina. They weren't just competing, they were showing off the goal to drop jaws, outstyle the other, and rewrite what a car could even look like. The HF0 wasn't the first wedge-shaped concept car, but it certainly pushed the form to the extreme. It sat so low, less than a meter tall, that pedestrians were warned not to trip over it. And no, it wasn't just a static art piece. It could actually drive. Its razor-thin profile and hyper-aerodynamic frame gave it real road presence, despite looking like something from a sci-fi set. And somehow, it inspired the production Lancia Stratos, the same one that would go on to dominate rally racing. As far as weird designs go, the HF0 didn't just earn attention, it demanded it. Today, cars still struggle to match their wind-cutting boldness. Stylish, surreal, and strangely influential, this sexy, seductive car made sure the design world never forgot its name. Number 12, 1973, Reliant Robin. Reliant wasn't chasing perfection, they were chasing affordability. The Robin, introduced in 1973, was the UK's answer to rising fuel prices and economic pressure. It came with 3 wheels, fiberglass panels, and enough space for a couple of passengers and a few groceries. Legally, it could be driven on a motorcycle license, which made it an easy choice for people avoiding full car ownership. But the catch, that missing fourth wheel was a tiny problem. The front-mounted single tire meant the car was prone to tipping, especially during tight turns or emergency maneuvers. Still, people bought it, and we mean a lot of them. It became part of British pop culture, showing up in TV shows like Top Gear, usually for comedic effect. Despite the jokes, it served a purpose. The Robin offered something functional for people on a budget and stayed in production in various forms for decades. It's not graceful, it's not fast, but it's legendary for just how weird, stubborn, and oddly practical it turned out to be. Number 11. 1967 Lamborghini Marzal. The Marzal was anything but subtle. Designed by Marcello Gandini under Bertone's banner, this Lamborghini broke away from the brand's usual two-seater formula and introduced a full four-passenger layout wrapped in near-transparent flair. Its big glass gull-wing doors weren't just a statement. They gave the public an unapologetic view into the car's bold white interior. That transparency, combined with the hexagonal rear window design and silver metallic finish, made the Marzal look more like a mobile sculpture than a daily driver. Lamborghini built it not just to provoke, but to one-up Ferrari in pure showmanship. Technically functional, it wasn't meant for production, but instead served as a design experiment. It even got its spotlight moment during the Monaco Grand Prix when Prince Rainier III drove it through the circuit. Despite all that glam, the Marzal never made it past prototype status. Too experimental, too flashy, but undeniably unforgettable. Even now, it still sparks debates. Was it genius or just too strange to survive the road? Number 10. 1976 Ferrari Rainbow. The 1976 Ferrari Rainbow was Ferrari's attempt to challenge traditional car design, and they went all in. Designed by Marcello Gandini for Bertone, this concept car broke from the sweeping curves Ferrari was known for and instead leaned into boxy, angular geometry. It was sharp, bold, and totally unapologetic. The standout feature? It's a retractable roof. Not the electronic kind we're used to now, but a physical lift-off and store roof that turned the coupe into a convertible on demand. Manual or not, that level of versatility was cutting edge in the 70s. But the Rainbow's timing didn't do it any favors. Audiences back then weren't ready for its rigid lines or futuristic shape, and it never made it past the concept stage. Still, it wasn't tossed aside. Gandini personally kept the only model for his own private collection. Even today, the Ferrari Rainbow stands as proof that pushing boundaries might not always work, but it sure does leave a mark. Number 9. 1955 BMW Isetta. Post-World War II Germany wasn't kind to car companies, and BMW was hanging by a thread. Then came the one and only Isetta. Originally an Italian design by Iso, the car was a tiny three-wheeler that looked like a motorized egg on wheels. BMW reworked it with a single-cylinder engine, and the 1955 version turned into a surprise success. It was cheap, reliable, and could squeeze through narrow streets with no problem. The front end opened like a refrigerator door, and somehow two adults could actually fit inside. What really made the Isetta special was timing. At a moment when fuel was scarce and the economy fragile, this microcar became a lifeline for mobility. BMW sold over 160,000 units, and that weird little bubble helped the company survive. It wasn't fast, it wasn't powerful, but it did exactly what people needed it to do, and looked adorable doing it. Without it, BMW's legacy might have ended in the 50s. Sometimes saving a company doesn't require a supercar, just a three-wheeled oddball that works. Number 8. 1947 Norman Timms Special. Norman Timms didn't build this car for attention. He built it because he could, Working alone in his California garage, the engineer who once lent his skills to Tucker and Hallebrand set out to create a car that matched the elegance of the swooping pre-war racers he admired. The result was the 1947 Norman Timms Special, a massive teardrop-shaped aluminum-bodied machine that looked like it was built to glide across time. No shortcuts were taken. Every curve was hand-formed. Every part fits with precision. And when it rolled out, painted in deep maroon with gold flake, it didn't just look beautiful, it looked intentional. The car had no roof, no bumpers, and barely any ground clearance. It wasn't meant for traffic, it was a personal statement. Years later, the car was rediscovered and restored after being left to rot in the desert, proving that true artistry never really disappears. It just waits to be appreciated again. The Norman Timms Special was, and still is, a one-man masterpiece. We mean, just look at that beauty. Number 7, 1959. Cadillac Cyclone. Cadillac wasn't afraid of taking risks in the 50s, and the Cyclone proves it without any kind of doubt. Rolled out in 1959, this concept looked like it was modeled after a missile, complete with giant nose cones and a body that almost floated over the pavement. Designed by Harley Earl during his final days at GM, the Cyclone was packed with wild ideas that pushed the tech envelope. Its most talked about feature was a built-in radar guidance system meant to detect obstacles ahead, a forerunner to today's collision avoidance tech. It also came with a bubble-top canopy that automatically closed when it sensed rain, and rear-hinged doors that made entering the car feel like stepping into a jet. Though none of these features made it to production, the Cyclone wasn't about practicality. It was about flexing design and engineering muscle, showing the world what American automakers were dreaming up at the edge of possibility. For all its oddities, the car wasn't forgotten, it just stayed in a different lane than everyone else. Number 6. BMW Gina Light Visionary. BMW didn't follow tradition when they built the Gina, they tossed it out. In 2001, they unveiled this concept car with a flexible skin. Yes, actual fabric stretched over a frame. Made of polyurethane-coated spandex, the material could shift and reshape as needed. The headlights would hide beneath the surface when off, and the car's body could flex slightly depending on the function. This wasn't about efficiency or mass production, it was an exercise in redefining what a car could be. Built under BMW's advanced design team led by Chris Bangle, Gina questioned everything from aesthetics to structural purpose. It wasn't flashy for the sake of it, it was pushing boundaries with full intent. You couldn't buy one, and no other car since has replicated its exact approach, but that wasn't the point. Gina was there to provoke thought, to ask whether steel and aluminum were the only way forward. It's strange, yes, but also fearless. And in an industry that often plays it safe, that alone made it unforgettable. Alright guys, now let's head over to number 5, Chrysler Jet Car. Back in the 1960s, everyone thought the future would involve chrome suits, robot butlers, and jet-powered everything, including the Chrysler Jet Car. At first glance, you'd think it was a prop from an old sci-fi film, but Chrysler was dead serious. This wasn't just some wild-looking prototype. It was a full-on attempt to make a gas turbine engine work in a passenger vehicle. Jet engines, originally developed for aircraft during World War II, could run on a wide variety of fuels and had fewer moving parts than piston engines, making them theoretically cheaper to maintain. And yeah, they could fly, figuratively. The only problem, building them for civilian use wasn't cheap, and the fuel economy just wasn't cutting it for your average driver. Still, Chrysler and a few other manufacturers kept the experiments going, even slapping jet engines into a few running models. While these sleek machines never made it to mass production, they proved one thing: car makers weren't afraid to chase the impossible, even if it blew up their budget. Number 4. 1956. Buick Centurion. When the 1956 Buick Centurion rolled out, it wasn't just about curves and chrome, it had tech that looked like it belonged in the next decade. Its all-glass roof grabbed attention first, wrapping the cabin in a dome of visibility. That alone set it apart from nearly everything on the road at the time. But what truly pushed the Centurion into weird genius territory was the backup camera, a real one, mounted in the rear wired to a dashboard screen. In 1956, at a time when most people were still adjusting their side mirrors by hand, this was next-level forward thinking. The system was tucked neatly into the trunk and worked well enough to turn heads in the industry, even if the feature didn't go mainstream for another half a century. As for the rest of the car, sleek lines, red and white bodywork, and a dash designed like a fighter plane cockpit. It was part spaceship, part family car, and way too advanced for the roads it was built to drive on. Number 3. Faraday Future FF01. This wasn't built for traffic lights or parking lots. Faraday Future unveiled it in 2016 as a pure concept, part tech showcase, part sci-fi vision. The design felt ripped from a racing game cutscene. Carbon fiber shell, central driving pod, and a transparent halo around the cockpit. Every surface curved with aerodynamic intent, but performance wasn't the only message. It was also a platform to show off Faraday's modular EV chassis, what they called variable platform architecture. That system could support a range of electric cars, but this particular machine, it was their poster child. Projected at over 1,000 horsepower with a 0-60 time under 3 seconds, it was more ambition than accessibility. The FF01 featured augmented reality in the dash, biometric data collection, and even water supplies for the driver. None of it was subtle. None of it was practical. And that was the point. This car didn't exist to hit the roads. It existed to prove that Faraday wasn't here to follow. They were trying to change the game before even entering it. Number 2. 1995, Chrysler Atlantic. The Chrysler Atlantic didn't feel like it came from 1995. More like 1941 wrapped in a dream. Styled by Bob Hubuck, it was intentionally retro, inspired by the curvaceous forms of classic French luxury coupes like the Bugatti Type 57. But Chrysler wasn't copying, they were amplifying. The Atlantic's long flowing front fenders and split windshield were pure throwback, while the exaggerated grille and oversized wheel arches made it impossible to ignore. Underneath, things stayed interesting. A custom straight-8 engine cobbled from 2 Chrysler V8s, because why not? It was loud, indulgent, and never meant for public roads. Chrysler built the Atlantic to show it could still swing for the fences creatively, even if it wasn't chasing a production line. No market research, no compromise, just design for the sake of design. And that's what made it iconic. Even among concept cars, the Atlantic stands alone, too dramatic to mass produce, too memorable to forget. A one-off reminder that sometimes, car design is just about telling a story in steel. Number 1. 1942, Loaf Electric. Built in Nazi-occupied Paris during World War II, the 1942 Loaf Electric, translated as the electric egg, wasn't just ahead of its time, it was practically from another planet. Created by Paul Arzens, a French industrial designer and railway artist, this bubble-like micro-car featured a lightweight aluminum body and, yes, a fully electric drivetrain. It could hit 71 km/h solo, or around 60 km/h with a passenger. Tiny? Absolutely. Functional? More than you'd expect. It was built for one person and maybe one more if they didn't mind being cozy. After the war, the electric motor was swapped for a small gas engine, but the design still looked like something from a futuristic art exhibit. It was half the length and width of a regular car and incredibly efficient for short city trips. Most electric cars wouldn't return to mainstream attention for decades, but the electric egg was rolling through the streets of Paris before the world even knew what eco-friendly meant. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more awesome content like this. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon in the next one.